Folks, the moment you've been waiting for, and honestly, it's the moment we've been waiting for. For any of you who've been around for a long time in some film shows, you might know that our first anniversary, we started in 1997, we did a couple of screenings that went well, and to celebrate in 1998, our first anniversary, we thought we want to show our absolute favorite movies. And we showed a double feature of Re-Animator and From Beyond. And at that moment, we thought, wouldn't it be great if one day we could show these movies with Jeffrey Combs in the house. And we dreamt of it, and we prayed for it. We prayed to whatever God or elder God you believe in. We did it. And finally, after all of these years, this is a dream that's come to fruition. So I'm not going to say anything more other than to ask you to please give it up for Herbert West, for Nathan Thomas, for Barney Philippo, Jeffrey Combs.
I work at the back row stood. You know what that means? Nice group work there. Okay, it's an honor to be here. I'm looking at a beautiful theater here. You all should be very, very proud and pleased that you have such a jewel like this in your community. Okay, this is a beautiful place. It's been a while, but I used to do a one-man show of Edgar Allan Poe in the morning.
Yeah.
Which, the Black Cat, when we did the Black Cat, Stuart said, you ought to do a one-man show of Poe. And I went, get out of here. But he was right. He kept pushing me for like 2 years. You ought to do this, you ought to do this. And he wore me down. And I'm so pleased and humbled that he did wear me down, because I walked in here and I hadn't really thought about it in a while, but this would be a beautiful space for that show. But anyway, this first movie, you may have seen it before, The Re-Animator. Got me on the dance floor, thank you very much. I was just a struggling actor among the multitudes of Los Angeles, and got an audition and went in and met this guy, and he seemed to like what I was doing, and I got a call back, and the next thing I know, I'm doing this black movie, and I had no idea that I would be standing here all these years talking to you about this jewel. Speaking of jewels, it's unlike any other movie I've ever done, and it's a miracle. Making a great movie, and I think Re-Animator is a great movie, is a miracle. There are so many moving parts. It's a collaborative art form, and rarely do all the pieces of the puzzle come together. But this one, yeah, baby. So, I hope you enjoy it again, and if you want to scream, go ahead. Love you all. I'll be here all weekend. Well, today and tomorrow. I probably won't get much sleep. That's okay. You will know. So I hope you enjoy it up here on the big screen. This is the way this movie should be seen. Most people over the years have seen this movie like in the basement with a couple other buddies at a mall. This is the way it should be watched.
We love you!
Yeah, the Frighteners is the only movie I've seen on the screen.
That he wanted to show. But we have never shown 9 9 movies over the course of the weekend.
Not enough.
Over the course of the weekend by one actor. And that, of course, is because there is no actor quite like this man. There is really no one who has had the genre, and there's a lot of great actors out there, but I think when you talk about the breadth of roles and of characters, and can play the hero, and can play the villain, can play the psychopath, can play the sympathetic character, there is no one quite like this man. And while I don't want to take away from his presence, I have to say, he has a special guest with him tonight to join us for the Q&A. I don't think he'll have too much to say, but he'll join us up here on the stage. If you didn't get to see him up at the photo op, if you weren't part of the photo op or the signing, you can at least get to see him now. Please help me welcome two special guests on the stage, Mr. Jeffrey Combs and also Rufus the Re-Animator. Ladies and gentlemen, Rufus the Re-Animator. Okay. All right.
I swear to God, I'll get it out and I'll jack you one more time.
Let him rest in peace. Pieces.
You know, every time I start watching this movie, which I've seen so many times, I go, well, I'll just watch the beginning, and then I don't.
We had work to do, and we sat there and watched the movie and said, just back the belly. Dinner to be eaten, dinner was forgone.
This movie is so well put together, you know, unsung heroes of Re-Animator. Seriously, the editor.
Yes.
I remember watching a compilation of the movie. It was like 2.5 hours. And streamed it down to like 86 minutes, zippy, and it just keeps going.
It plays so well. There's not a dull moment, there's not a lull in the action. It just flies for 85 minutes.
Well, that was a long time ago.
So before we get too into depth with Re-Animator and then maybe some of the other films we're going to watch, remember, folks, we have 2 Q&As, right? There's a Q&A tonight, and then also, if you don't already have your tickets, you can come back tomorrow, and we've got a whole new set of stories and of films and of experiences to talk about. But I want to start at the beginning, as they say. Mike, the one question that I always, whenever we do Q&As, I'm always tempted to ask folks is, prior to your career and your obvious influence on the genre, what was your experience or your interest or your connection to horror or cult cinema prior? When you were a kid, were you drawn to any of these films, or was it something that really was more because of the way your career path took you?
Horror was always part of the bouquet when I was a kid. I didn't have all of these outlets of watching things. Really, it was down to whatever was on TV. I mean, I remember when we got cable, and really, cable was. I grew up about 3 hours north of Los Angeles on the West Coast. Okay, so cable, when we got cable, as opposed to an antenna, the antenna got 3 channels, free: ABC, CBS, and NBC. That was it. You know, local smaller towns that actually had ABC, CBS, NBC. And then cable was really just all of those, and then all of the local channels out of Los Angeles, which really kind of opened my eyes, because like these more Los Angeles-based independent channels would show things that ABC, CBS, NBC wouldn't. And then my only other outlet was the local movie theater.
Of course.
And which right now that movie theater is a campaign to get refurbished. Okay?
It still exists.
It still exists.
It's still a theater?
It was an old theater. It was built in, like a lot of theaters, it was built just before the freaking Depression. So
Right.
it was built, it's glorious, and then not so much. You know, all of a sudden the economy fell apart, nobody could go to it, you know. So, you know, like a lot of movies, it just sort of started falling on hard times, and God, I would go there, you could watch a matinee with all the bells and whistles and the cereal and
Right.
cartoons. It was like, I remember paying a quarter, you know?
Sure.
That's how old I am. and it was, I just do remember, like, I remember one movie was the head that wouldn't die. You want to talk
Oh,
about...
the thing that wouldn't die. The thing that wouldn't die was the head in the box. The head in the hat box.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was a hat box. I just remember that at the end of the movie, there was a woman's head on a table. Talk about foreshadowing that.
You were destined.
I had no idea.
A brain that wouldn't die, right?
Brain that wouldn't die. And the last shot of the movie was a slow pan crawl into a woman's head saying, "Kill me. Kill me.
Yeah.
Kill me. Kill me. Kill me." Okay. The whole way home I'm going, this is the fucking scariest thing. It wasn't so much that it was well done, it was that the idea was so frightening to me. That someone would be that, in that position. It was scary. And then look,
You got a lot of severed heads in your career, though. Your first movie role, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it the horror star?
No, that wasn't
no,
my
it's not your
first-
first.
no, no.
Your first horror movie. Though.
my first horror movie.
Okay, what was your first
A horror
role?
star, but they changed the title to
Frighteners?
Frightmare,
Right.
which is like, okay.
We've shown that movie. By the
Have
way,
you?
we have. We have one of our 24-hour horror-thon tickets on sale now.
So what's weird about that is, you know, once Re-Animator and doing all these other movies, and I think like Trauma picked up that, you know, it's a trauma. I have a trauma movie. But it wasn't a trauma movie when we shot it. It was just an ad. So Trauma bought it, and then when they put it out on DVD, they like put my name above the title. And I'm just a supporting. It's stupid, you know.
But am I right? Don't you get decapitated in that?
I do.
Spoiler alert.
Not only do I get decapitated, I mean, talk about foreshadowing. Not only do I get decapitated, I'm upstairs in a mansion, my head gets decapitated, shot of it rolling down the stairs, shot of it rolling across the foyer, down the front steps, and landing on the lawn, and then a raven comes in and lands on my head.
That's even further foreshadowing.
Are you kidding? That was really, that raven scared the shit out of me. The guy, the raven, wrangler guy, the guy with the pet raven, he said, listen, it won't hurt you or anything, but, do you have any rings on or anything? 'Cause it likes shiny things. And he held out his hand with a big, shiny, probably glass thing, and the bird went, and that's what went in my head. He said, yeah, we're going to put in a little yarmulke, leather yarmulke with some raw meat. It hasn't eaten in a couple of days. I'm like, really? Where's my union on this? So, I'm the severed head. I'm the guy in a buried hole with cardboard and leaves on it, with this. I don't even think about it anymore. When the bird ate the meat and then jumped out and started coming, I love this. The director said, keep your eyes open. Here comes the bird. Okay, this is done. We're done because shiny eyes, bird likes no. So, yeah, that was my first horror. What else do
But clearly, that was not your first foray in acting. So what was your background prior to the film work in terms of theatrical stuff, in terms of, you know, the cliche? Where did you catch the bug? Where was it? What propelled you to a life of performing?
I was very, you know, you reflect on your career, and I'm incredibly lucky. Where I grew up, a little town, Lompoc, up the coast. This was the 60s, okay? Things were flush. Everything was good, everything was well-oiled machine, revenue was coming in, states supported schools, encouraged you to go to college, and they built a 2-year college in the next town over. And it just so happened that the local high school teacher applied to be the head of the drama department and got the job. And this man turned out to be a visionary, an entrepreneur, and an enthusiastic theater person, and proceeded to create a theater department, went to the city and got a bond, and it passed to build a theater. And not just a little, like, you know, Cracker Jack little, but a thrust stage. And this little, and then proceeded to create, by the time I was graduating high school, one of the finest theater repertory companies, like on the West Coast. I mean, the people that I worked with when I was a puppy is just phenomenal. And so right after high school, you know, 20 miles away was the perfect place for me to go. And when you first start doing theater and you're in high school, you're doing it for really kind of all the wrong reasons. Sense of thrill, hey, there's chicks.
The chicks were always going for the theater guys. That was always my experience. And the choir guys, man. Band kids.
And band.
Right.
No, you have a point. But when I took the elective for drama when I was a junior, I thought, okay, easy A, maybe, you know, no homework, maybe, and no doubt girls are going to be in it. Okay, so that wasn't happening. The hope was when I studied. So that's where I started. It was all for the wrong reasons, you know, all of that sort of stuff. But when I went to this place, the mindset was, no, this is a craft, this is serious, and it's a discipline. Think of yourself as a ballet dancer, okay? You are not here to, you know, mess around or, you know, you're beholden to everybody that you work with, and it's a high standard, and someone said it's not a career. It's a lifestyle.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. You have to do that. And I had such great examples around me: older actors, middle-aged actors that were just like 5, 6, 7 years ahead of me that I could emulate or go, I see. Oh, that's what it. Oh, wow. Okay, and so it turned my head towards doing this for the right reasons. To as Shakespeare says, hold a mirror up to nature. Human behavior always interested me when I was a kid. Friends of my parents would come over and they'd have kids, and you know, the parents would be in the living room and they'd have coffee and they'd tell stories, and the kids would go play it, but not me. I'd be over in the corner listening to the stories that were being told by the adults. And it's just, I think just in me, I was just interested in storytelling and narrative and characters. I just always was. It's just innate for me. And so it seemed like a natural, and then I was just lucky. It's just lucky.
Did you feel supported? Did your family, I'm sure for a lot of actors, that's a tough conversation.
Yeah,
This is what I want to
I've
pursue.
heard a lot of actors go, man, you know, my mom and my dad did not want me to do this. They just really won't talk to me now because it's like I didn't have any of that. No one in my family, no one was in the arts. Like, no. Both my parents were born and raised in the Ozarks of Arkansas. They met each other after World War II. The jobs were in California. And so they moved, and so that's where I was born and raised in just a lucky place. That's all I can say. And so after doing that, I realized I've done a lot of plays, but I don't have the training, and so I auditioned for like all the training programs, you know, Juilliard, Carnegie, Yale, NYU. Didn't get in any of them, but I got at University of Washington, had an actor training program. It's kind of like like a race car driver knows how to drive the car, but he doesn't know what makes the car run. That to me, that's what training was. It's you take it apart.
Sure.
Then you put it back together, but you have a better understanding after you dismantle it and put it back. Kind of like boot camp, really. And so that was a pivotal thing. These are all really, really pivotal things. And then right after that 3-year program, right out of there, I got go to the Old Globe, which is a preeminent regional theater in San Diego. Beautiful place. And, you know, got good roles. I got an agent. My second year there, I got an agent, like someone, you know, who gets this? They walk out after getting out of makeup and someone goes, hi, I'm an agent, I'd like to represent you. I've got an office in New York or LA, or which one do you want to do? It's like, really? Wow, that was easy. but it wasn't easy. Because when I moved to LA, I hit a wall. Bad wall. I just, nothing. The momentum, whatever, verve, whatever kind of style. It's just a different animal and much more competitive. And I faltered. I just felt stifled and ennui. Just this isn't happening. I didn't really know what to do about it. I've never been a good auditioner. I still am not a very good auditioner, but I just know that. I don't know. It's an artificial thing to me. It's not, acting is reacting, and so if you're, you know, have nothing to react to, but you have to create it, it's just hard for me. So, you know, 3 years later, that agent dropped me. And I was like, oh. But what sustained me was that I had done all that theater. I'd done a lot of regional theater before I ever came to LA, and so I knew that I was okay. It's just, you know, this is a tough gig. It's really hard, and it's remained that way. A lot of rejection. Actors get a lot of rejection. Thank you very much. And, you know, or, that was one of my better auditions. Crickets. You just never, you can't put a barometer on it.
You've got to have an incredibly thick skin.
That's why I like baseball. A great hitter fails 70% of the time. Walks away humiliated 70% of the time. I'm like, hey, that's kind of me. only more than 70%. You know, it's soul crushing after a while.
Obviously, I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions, but I want to talk very quickly, at least, and I'll let them talk about whatever they want, about the films that we're going to see tonight. That we've watched and that we're going to get into. So
Rufus is in the next.
Yes, Rufus, right. I mean, he was saying too how it's a tough business for cats.
No,
very limited.
The Black Cat, which I'm very, very proud of, that was kind of, I think when we first talked, I went, I want to have that, you went, well, we already got that plan, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you gotta get another Stuart Gordon movie. All these movies are Stuart Gordon movies tonight, by the way.
So, again, tell us about getting the audition and the process for Re-Animator. What do you think it was about Stuart as the guiding force for this that made Re-Animator so special, or what do you think he saw in you or Barbara or Bruce or the cast that, you know, we've talked about lightning in a bottle, and that this movie is really, it's really flawless. I really think it's flawless. How much of that was collaborative? How much of that was Stuart? How much of it was Dennis Paoli, the screenwriter?
I think first and foremost, the one thing that Stuart and I shared in our background was theater. Stuart was a theater director. He was an artistic director of his own theater in Chicago called the Organic Theater. It's a completely different kind of theater than, you know, I'm doing Shakespeare and Moliere and Brecht and musicals. You know, he's doing this whole thing, and Stuart was doing the same thing, but almost really, really edgy, avant-garde the kind of theater that the audience goes, Jesus, what's going on? You know, he really, like Re-Animator, he really liked to shock a lot, but that theater was thriving, and so, but we both came from the theater, and so I think that he saw in me, you know, a theater actor, someone that he could speak to, and I have to say, one of the things that he brought to Re-Animator and why this movie is such a success is we rehearsed. What a concept.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a play, it's a 9-week run, it's a 9-week gig, but 4 of it is rehearsals.
Right.
I mean, it's, you get a movie, and you get a callback, you get the movie, the rehearsal is like maybe blocking before we shoot. It's frightening. You know, there's no learning the beats, learning what works, experimenting, try it this way, because there's no time for it. Because money is time, and we can't mess around here for hours figuring out what we're going to do. We just have to shoot something now, right? Just do it, and that's scary. That's really a high wire act there, and why I think a lot of movies aren't as good as they are, because there's no prep, you know. But he, by the way, you know, the reason why movies aren't done is because if there's rehearsals, well, then the unions are going to say, well, then you have to pay them, and they don't want to pay the extra money to like get it right. They just, you know, shoot it, which is shooting yourself in the foot, if you ask me. But that's the way the dynamics are. But Stuart, you know, we were all fairly new actors, young actors, and we were willing. Sure, let's get this right. So we, for 2-3 weeks before we ever started shooting, we rehearsed all those scenes. So the music that you hear and the timing and the beats and the pauses and the leaps on things, we rehearsed like a band. Right. We had that instead of like a bunch of session musicians going, okay, let's play. What are you gonna get? You're not gonna get something as crisp and as polished. So that was a key to why Re-Animator elevated like that.
And again, Dennis Paoli also came from that same world of theater too. So he was a playwright before he was writing.
Bruce Abbott, you know, we had never, by the way, Bruce Abbott's an unsung hero of this movie. You don't watch this movie unless you care about that guy. Unless you care about Dan Kane, you got nothing to hang on to. He is the everyman of this movie. I just, every time I watch the movie, I watch Bruce because That's the harder role.
And obviously, as we'll see tonight, you had, with those two guys in particular, with Stuart Gordon directing and Dennis Miller writing, you had a long and very, very fruitful relationship. Tonight we're going to see two others. There's another tomorrow, and we'll talk about From Beyond tomorrow.
Right.
So you got to come back tomorrow, folks.
Fortress.
Right? But we'll go chronologically. So it was exactly 10 years after Re-Animator that you reunited with both Stewart and Dennis Miller, and also, once again, Barbara Crampton for Castle Freak, which is the movie that we're going to end tonight, right? And Castle Freak has a huge following. I'm just curious what the process was like. You knew each other, I think, very well at that stage. It was not Empire Pictures, but still Charles Band, same, in a sense, a producer. Did it feel the same? Was it that same level of connection, or was it 10 years later things had changed, if not necessarily personally between you, but as far as the production?
First of all, we had a discussion earlier about Empire Pictures, and that Re-Animator was unlike any other Empire picture.
I stand by the fact that Re-Animator bucks the trend. Every Empire picture of them, Re-Animator From Beyond, they're not great. I'm sorry, folks, Ghoulies is not great. No, good. Fool me all you want. Troll, Eliminators, Zone Troopers. I defy one of you to stand up for Zone Troopers. See?
He's got a point. Well, here's the answer. Here's the thing. Brian Houston was an entrepreneur who knew that he wanted to make movies and had no idea how to do it. But by the grace of the gods, somehow he managed to meet Stuart Gordon, and the two of them conceived this idea, and Brian raised money. Charlie is making movies, and he's going, the distributors are taking all the profits. I make these movies, I give them to a distributor, and by the time the distributor has raped and pillaged me, I got nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a wing of Empire Pictures that's distribution. Okay? I'll distribute my own movies. And then Brian and Stuart are looking for a distributor. So they somehow get a hold of Charlie and they say, we have the money and we just want a distributor. And Charlie goes, you have the money? Sure, I'll be your distributor. So, but let's be fair. Charlie also made a lot of contributions to Re-Animator. The first week of shooting of Re-Animator, there was a different DP.
Oh, really?
A different DP. The stuff that's in the house. Dan and Megan Bed going into my room, Dan going down the hall, anything in the house, it was a different DP. And if you look at that stuff, it's a little murky, it's a little darker, it's not quite. And so Charlie said, your movie's got to look good, so use my guy, Matt Alber. And the great Matt Alber, the great DPs, came in and just elevated the vision of the visuals of that movie. All the swinging lamp and just everything. It's gorgeous. So Charlie made contributions, but he's also the distributor, and he turned around and did what the distributors did. So that's why it's an Empire picture, but not really.
Right, I got you. Castle Freak was Full Moon. Was it no longer Empire at that point? But it was still Charles. Stuart still had a relationship, I guess. With
Charlie and Stuart had a really close relationship. Charlie saw real value in talent in in Stewart as a storyteller, as a director. And as the story goes, you know, Stewart was in Charlie's office, and Charlie was one of those guys who came up with a title and had somebody make a poster of it. Yeah, really. And then he framed the poster. So he had a whole wall of like imaginary movies with titles. And he said, "No, Stuart, as you and I, we got to work together. You know, let's make another movie." And well, what do you want to do? And Stuart said, "Well, you know, what's this castle thing? That's a good title." So I said, "I don't know."
He had a castle, right?
Yes, delicious castle. He owned a castle. And Peter was a freak. He owned a castle in Italy, and so, you know, a dream was born. You know? So Stuart and Dennis put their heads together, and they came up with this very dark and disturbing story for Castle Freak, all based on a fucking poster.
Well, like I said, I don't want to take too much time away from the audience, but the last thing we have to talk about, of course, is then, more than 10 years after that, you guys did what will be our next film, which is The Masters of Horror. It's not a short, it's not a full, it's an hour-long, we'll call it a feature film, the adaptation of The Black Cat.
Which I'm extremely proud of.
As you should be. It's amazing, and it seems safe to say that it really kind of set your career and your interests in a new direction in terms of your focus and your interest in the works of Edgar Allan Poe.
Well, you know, it's so funny how you never know how things come together. I remember 2-3 years before Masters of Horror, Black Cat, I said to Stuart, you know, Stu, first of all, I was banging around trying to figure out something. I love history. And I was looking for a historical figure, and quite frankly, not in horror. It was kind of like one of those moments of like Leonard Nimoy, I'm not Spock.
Right.
You know, it's like I'm not a horror guy. And I was looking for something that would be historical, a character, a person in history that maybe I could play. It's a pipe dream, but I was thinking like that, you know, something period, totally unrealistic. Period costs 3 times, 4 times as much. I don't know. So I was reading biographies of different people in history, and reluctantly I picked up a biography of Poe, and I was completely captivated by his complexity and his genius, and to say nothing of the fact that, you know, he's 5'8". And he has, like, you know, hazel green eyes. And so I was like, he has a prominent nose. I don't. But I just thought, what a character! What an American! One of America's great writers, and so complex and so tortured. And I said to Stuart, why hasn't anyone made a movie about his life? It is unbelievable. And Stuart didn't say much. But about a year and a half later, I get an email from him going, there's a script attached to this email. I would like for you to play Edgar Allan Poe in The Black Cat. I don't know where that came from. I do know that I told him that, and he listened, and he really listened. And he thought about it, and a little did I know, he'd already done a Poe play when he was at the Organic Theater. So he was like, I was playing his music a little bit, you know, so one of the greatest gifts of my life. to be asked to play Poe.
And we got to, the last thing is we got to visit the house that you'll see portrayed in the film where Poe lives is, of course, set in Philadelphia. That was where Poe was living at the time he wrote the story of the Black Cat. And we got to stop by today to
We
check
went
out.
there this morning. I was really kind of just gobsmacked. It was a revelation for me. Because, as you pointed out, this is where he wrote Telltale Heart. This is where he wrote The Black Cat. This is the place that he probably paced up and down these planks, hardwood floors, working on this stuff. And here I am. It just kind of takes your breath away. And when you watch The Black Cat, there's a very similar sort of feel to it. The stairs are rickety and dark and dingy down in the basement, and the rooms are all kind of tight, and it's just like amazing. Stewart must have come to Philadelphia and seen those sets to sort of articulate what it is that he wanted. I don't know, but I can't figure this stuff out.
Well, you had said when we were walking up to the top floor, you said, I'm literally walking in Poe's footsteps. And I thought that was really a profound thing to say.
He came up these stairs. He had to have. Yeah.
Folks, I'm going to come out to the audience down here, and Bob is up in the balcony if there's any folks up there. So we're going to try to get as many questions as we can in about 10.
Hi, yeah. You were involved in the one season Perversions of Science, the spin-off of Tales from the Crypt.
Yes, it was.
I think you were involved in one of the most ridiculous books I have ever seen in content, and it was amazing. How was that experience to be involved with the same kind of crew who made Tales from the Crypt and on Perversions of Science with that particular episode?
Perversions of Science was sort of an attempt at a follow-up to Tales from the Crypt. Kind of the same producers and everything. And Tales from the Crypt had run its thing, and so let's create this thing called Perversions of Science. And the premise of the one, it was kind of like little Twilight Zones, So the premise of mine is I'm a prisoner. I'm a prisoner, because I'm nuts and homicidal. I'm a psychopath, and I can't be. But I have a doctor, David Warner, David Warner, and he believes I can be recuperated. But I can't. And so it's finally decided that I would be banished. And it turns out you realize, well, we're not on Earth. We're on some other planet, actually. So they put me in this capsule and shoot me off into space. This homicidal psychopath in this capsule. And as the capsule's going through space, at the very end, it kind of turns to the window. And I'm Hitler. And I'm heading towards Earth. And then everybody goes, oh, that's where he came from. It's deliciously absurd, but at the same time, you don't see it coming.
Bob, I'm going to throw you in the balcony. Anybody else have a question? Anybody have a question?
By the way, that's the first time I got to be directed by William Malone, the great director. And I got to do House on Haunted Hill and Fear.com and Parasanya with Mr. Malone, dear friend of mine.
Jeff, we're up in the balcony.
Yeah.
You seem to have traveled a lot. What's your favorite place that you've traveled to film a movie?
That I what from a movie?
Where's your favorite place that you've traveled in terms
My
of
favorite place I've traveled?
where you shot a film?
You don't want to know my least favorite place. Well, that's a hard one. Well, Italy. I shot like 5 times in Italy when it was affordable back in the, that was pretty glorious. New Zealand. Working with the great Peter Jackson. That was a pretty magical place. for sure. Those are the top two. Australia wasn't bad at all. So that would be it. Absolutely, those three places.
All right, Jeff, we're going over here.
Of all the roles you played, which one is your favorite to play and why?
Which one is my favorite?
Favorite character role?
You know, that's really hard. I get this question more often with just Star Trek, because I've kind of like got a number because I've been lucky enough to recur in different characters in Star Trek, and I just kind of answer it the same way. Do you have children? Which one's your favorite? You see, I can't. What I like is the difference. One of the baseline things I was taught is, as an actor, you will survive if you're versatile. And I don't think film and television embraces versatility. I think that the sooner they can pigeonhole you, the better off. They don't have to think about you in any sort of creative way at all. Oh, you're that thing. You know, I feel for actors that like their first gig was like a soap opera. Oh, he's a soap actor. It's like, no, man, it's just that was his first break. It's not that he, you know, did all this sacrifice so he could be a soap. It's so silly, and so I have always tried to be variety. And if it's a hard time for people to sort of say, oh, he's that, you know, oh, he's the bad guy, oh, he's the good guy, he's the victim, he's the funny character. Good, I'm all of those things. You know, I mean, that's, to me, a bowl of fruit's much more interesting than just a bundle of bananas. I mean, that's totally right. There are actors that do the same persona. We call them persona actors. They do the same thing every time. John White is always being John White. You know, there's just, and that's great. But I'm not interested. I'm more interested in, wait, that's Jeff Pauls? No. That's what I like. I like going to the store and I can buy milk and bread. Nobody knows.
Bob, up in the balcony.
Anyone else up here? They're all quiet.
They're all quiet. All right, we'll come down here then.
Go down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is there any other Poe story that you would like to play as Poe, if you had to pick one?
Any other Poe story? Well, out of the Black Cat, as I mentioned, Stuart, when we were on set, said, you know, you ought to do a one-man show of Poe. I feel like I'm in the presence of Poe. You ought to do that. And I was like, there's no way to do that. But he kept going and persevering at it relentlessly for like 2 years. And I finally went, okay, fine, what are we going to do? And we did a one-man show. And to me, doing that one-man show is all the colors of Poe. So I can't imagine doing, you know, just like another story of Poe's. What I'd like to do is I'd like to film my one-man show.
Yes.
But it's been so hard. It's been so hard because I find that like the movie business is not literary. That's what I would say. You know, if I had done a one-man show, I don't know, H.P. Lovecraft, he has a pop culture kind of thing, much more than Poe. Poe has a lot more gravitas and a lot more complex. It's a harder thing to sell even. And so I find when I go, I like to film my one-man show of Poe, I see people's eyes, producers or people that get things done, glaze over because they think, what a turgid evening. Well, that's just bullshit. Because he's so hilarious. He's funny and cutting and tragic and ridiculous. It's all of these colors. And it just, you know, a preconceived notion has been a real hard thing to break with people. So my dream that I've never been able to fulfill is to get a budget together and capture it. I like to capture it. If you want to hear it, it's on Audible. A performance of Nevermore, An Evening with Edgar Allan Poe, is on Audible. A performance I did in Boston, maybe 10 years ago. It's a pretty good, but you can't see. You don't see, you just hear. But it's a really good example of what the evening is like. It's soaring and it's just heartbreaking, like the man himself, really.
Jeff, we have time just for a couple more questions, so we're going to try and get as many as we can in like 5 minutes.
So Re-Animator is very smart, very funny, but also very transgressive. What was your original thoughts when you first read the script, and why did you decide to do it?
It's a good question. When I, at that point in my life, I realized this the other day, that when I got a call back for Re-Animator, when I got offered Re-Animator at about the same time, I was offered to play Romeo in a stage production. Romeo, or, a mad scientist. But one was film, and one was theater, and I was in LA not to do theater, I was in LA to do film. And it gave me an opportunity to be 3 weeks on a set, learning the craft that I was there for. And a pretty fucking good role, too. But, look, if you look at the credits, I'm not first, as we call it, first card. I'm not the first name that shows up. I was viewed as sort of a good supporting role in that movie. I had no idea that as they trimmed the movie down and anything, that the dynamic of that kind of changed. I didn't see that coming. So I just relished the idea of learning, why are they setting up a light there? What do you mean he's changing the lens? What are you talking about, screen direction? I was learning. To me, I was learning everything about movie making. So I saw it as an opportunity. I really, what am I here for if not to work in cinema? So it's just a big, fat, lucky break early on. I had no idea. I did not think that movie would be what it is today. I didn't see it coming.
Guys, last questions right here.
What was your experience portraying mold or the conscience in?
Can you speak up a little bit?
What was your experience playing mold or the conscience in motivational growth? Was it one of the weirder?
That's the last question. Here. So, motivational growth was this quirky, little independent movie. I was approached to. Basically, the premise of the movie is a guy's going to kill himself. He's reclusive. He's agoraphobic. He hasn't left his apartment in a year and a half. He's going to hang himself. But it doesn't work. And he wakes up from hitting his head, and there is in the corner of his bathroom is mold. Big pile of mold. That's talking to him. And, and I'm the mold. So, and this mold is really, giving it to this guy and telling him how to live his life, and, but big script, but, I didn't have to wear makeup. I just went into a sound booth in a day or two and just rolled that out. Seat of my pants.
Jack.
Folks, the last question for Q&A is always a tough one, because it's got to be really good. It's got to be a really good, insightful question that brings this moment
Oh, shit.
to its ultimate. So who's got that level of question? You're shaking your head, you're doing the Mensa. I don't know. You've got that level of question. You're confident.
Nice and loud.
So, in the bonus features for Bride, without stepping on Bride itself, one of the original concepts for the follow-up to Re-Animator involved the basement of the White House. Following
House of
Re-Animator.
Re-Animator you're talking about.
Did you see a script for that? How were you part of that conversation?
It was pretty well conceived, and I talked to Stuart about it a lot. House of Re-Animator was a sequel idea to Re-Animator, where some years had passed, and you have to realize this was in the administration of Bush and Cheney. And Stuart didn't particularly like Bush and Cheney. So Stuart said, what if we have a scenario, Herbert's out there somewhere, but what if we have a scenario in the White House where the vice president, who's actually running the country, has a heart attack. And is dead, but that's disastrous. He can't be dead. What can we do? And someone raises their hand in the administration and says, well, I know there's a guy. I know a guy. So they get a hold of Dan Kane, who's like, stolen my work and, has his own medical practice, very successful guy, with my notes. And he goes out and he finds CIA, whatever. They find Herbert West and they bring him to the White House, and he reanimates the vice president, and everything seems to be fine. But for not very long. And then the vice president goes berserk and attacks the first lady, and in the basement, there are all kinds of creepy things in the White House, like, there's Kennedy, and, Stuart, and I kept saying Stuart. Okay, good idea, but maybe it shouldn't be Bush, and maybe it should not be Cheney. It could be kind of a vague personification that, like Dr. Strangelove. It's like, that's not a specific president. We can do that. No, fuck that. No. And so every producer goes, why would I alienate 50% of the audience that might go tickets to this? So, it never got funded. But Stuart, that's just Stuart, I don't care. I'm not changing what I want to do. And so it never really kind of got fleshed out. Kind of a good idea, but.
Folks, it's been such a great Q&A. Thank you so much. Remember, we still have tickets available for tomorrow. If you did get your question today, please come back tomorrow.
Please come back tomorrow.
Please come back.
We're here.
We're here all day, literally all day. Folks, please give it up one more time for Jeffrey Combs.
Sorry, girl. I'll clap.
What an amazing show it was. Picture that times two, because we have twice as much Jeffrey Combs for you today. I mentioned last night that when we started Exhumed Films, our first anniversary show was a double feature of From Beyond and Re-Animator, and the dream had always been if we could ever get Jeffrey Combs to come out for a show, that would be incredible. And I'm not exaggerating when I say he has absolutely lived up to the hype. He has been such a wonderful guest, so gracious, so friendly, so giving with his time, and we know that you're going to give him the biggest round of applause and the biggest Philadelphia area welcome. Folks, please help welcome to the stage the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jeffrey Howard.
Aren't these guys great?
Yeah.
Re-Animator, these two gents, I'm in good hands. Everybody have a good time?
Yeah.
Good. I'm wore out. This is the follow-up. From Beyond is the follow-up to Re-Animator. It's the next movie that we all did together. Obviously based on the success of Re-Animator, quickly put something together. Well, Stuart and Dennis certainly did. Stuart always said that From Beyond is the only movie title that is two prepositions. As an English teacher, you will understand. From Beyond. Doesn't say what, but you know, there you go. Based on a Lovecraft story, fairly ambiguous, but leave it to Stuart and Dennis Paoli to fill in those gaps in a insane way. Shot in Rome, or just outside of Rome. We lived in Rome. I mean, we stayed in Rome, but we would travel out to the old Dino De Laurentiis studios. Sounds glamorous, but actually they were now the Empire Studios, and they were really sound stages and the office, and it was all empty. Dino De Laurentiis had some tax issues, kind of left the country, and the Italian government came in and just pilfered and took everything, air conditioning, and so it was just really kind of a shell of the structure. But we made do. We were in Italy. Hilarious shooting this movie. The Italian crews were not used to, are you ready, to remain quiet during filming. They just don't have that tradition. A lot of the movies are all dubbed, including their own. I went to an Italian movie when I was there. It was an Italian movie, and it did not match up. It was like, people are insane. But they didn't seem to care. It was like normal for them. Go figure. So we would like action. They would be like, and then two guys would start hammering, you know. Like we had a set. At one point, the crew right away kind of went on strike because their lunches did not have a bottle of wine in them. Seriously, we're not going to work if at lunch we don't have a bottle of wine. You heathens, you Americans, what's wrong with you? Okay, so, you know, they lived on caffeine and vino. It's just beautiful people. But Matt Goldberg created a beautiful palette. This is a gorgeous movie. I think this movie is very Lovecraftian. Very Lovecraftian. Unlike any other film that's an adaptation of his work. Stuart at his best. My makeup sucked. It was really, really hard to be in that. And me, who's worn a lot of makeup, that's saying something. But anyway, very proud of this movie. It was really kind of a flip because, you know, Herbert West is kind of the driving force of Re-Animator. Here, I'm kind of like the victim. Wait, don't have, wait, what are we doing? I can't, you know, and Barbara is sort of the, you know, driving Westian sort of force in this movie. So we kind of flip roles. Not really. I'm sort of like the Dan Kane of this movie, but really, really hideous with the makeup. Thank you. Look at that. I loved it. All right. I'm gonna see you later, and I really look forward to the day, okay? Thank you. Anybody want to go Texas?
Yeah.
That's not a, vacation spot like you watch that movie. Anyway, that is the voice of Cardi talking to the director. He wrote this, and I do not understand why he didn't get to do another single movie. It's absolutely awful, because that thing sings, and he was great to work with. And look at the cast. Young Renee Zellweger. I think this is the movie that got her Jerry Maguire. Started it off.
Probably. It probably wasn't Chainsaw 4.
No, it wasn't.
How dare you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have my list of things in order, but since we're talking about it, since we just came out of London 45, you mentioned, or I guess Cardi mentioned in the video intro, that you read first for one role, but then felt that you were right for Dinosaur Bob. But my question is, were you pursued for this? I would think it would be any young actor's dream to say, I want Jeffrey Combs in my movie, or is this something that you came by in a different manner?
Memory is hazy, but I know that before the movie, I had become friends with Darren Scott, who is one of the producers of this movie, a director in his own right. I've done a lot of movies for Darren Scott. Caught Up, which is a really cool noir movie, but I play a smaller role in it. It's like modern noir. The Bokeem Woodbine. It's a really lovely movie if you ever want to watch it. So I had met Darren through my friend Courtney Joyner, who's a writer, and so Darren at that time was known not so much as a director, but as a producer who was good to work with first-time directors. That kind of, he was kind of a director himself, and so he was a good wingman for someone who hadn't directed a movie before. And I think maybe that had something to do with it. I also heard somewhere that the casting directors were really keen on having me come in for this show, for this movie. I don't have much recollection of that. I've never been. Some actors are like, really close with particular casting directors, and those casting directors just go to bat for them all of the time, and I never really felt like I was like one of those guys. So it was sort of a surprise to me that someone said, they were really like, you gotta get Jeff Combs in this movie. I did not read for Creepy Cody. I did not read for it. I prepared for it. And I got to the audition, and I was so fucking, he's right, I was so fucking pissed because they went, oh yeah, we want you to, just like, like it was the easiest thing in the world. We want you to read for this other role. And I was like, what about the last week and a half that I spent, this is bullshit, And, but, because I'm not a good cold reader, unless the material rocks. And this is just Texas poetry here. I mean, it just flows. And so I just had to look at those pages and not worry about making much eye contact with people and just make that fly. And it just kind of, it's easy when it's well written. That's what I'd say. I was really wanted to be in this movie because, I'm known for Re-Animator and From Beyond. I'm this horror genre thing, and I'm like, this box. I can't be in this box. you know, as an actor, stop labeling me, you know, and you know, my family's from the South. I have, you know, an archive of relatives that are like that shit, you know, and so it was like, I know this, I want to do this. The funny story, when I did get the part, you know, I started growing my hair even longer, and I'd forgotten that I guess I did grow a mustache before I went in to audition. But then I grew the sideburns and all that.
It's a good look.
Yeah.
It's timeless.
Well, my daughter's here. Catherine, you here? Where are you? So Catherine was going into preschool.
Oh.
And we had to go meet the preschool people. And my wife was like, no. You really can't. Can you shave? It's like, no, I can't shave, man. I got this roll. You know, so we went in and met this older woman, and you know, my wife said, "I'm really sorry. You know, my husband's an actor, and you know, like
Sorry, looks
basically
like white
saying,
trash.
you know, this isn't really him." And she said, "Well, I kind of like it." So I got you into preschool, honey, with that.
All comes back to education, don't you?
Oh, yeah, it all comes back. So, to me, this movie was, yeah, God, I got to do a scene with Peter Fonda. Are you kidding? Nice man.
Yeah, I bet. Very zen.
So,
Well, again, I could go for. I'm very curious about the decision to have Peter Fonda with the voice.
Well, it was written.
Well, yes, of course, but I mean that's just such a great. It's just a great little bit that's completely unnecessary. You could have had Peter delivering, and he's got such a sonorous voice.
You could, but the character, though, you know.
No, I know it's a brilliant choice. It's just
The thing that I'm curious about is I never talk Cardi. I call him Cardi. Respect to Cardi. That were subtitles a necessary thing because it wasn't really articulate enough. So it was like, oh, geez, no one's ever going to understand what he's saying. So subtitles. I don't know if it was a pre-planned thing or it was like we just got to do subtitles. It doesn't matter. Actually,
it's better with subtitles.
It's kind of funny with subtitles, like a different language or something. Just amazing cast. Just a wonderful cast. All gone on to do great things in their careers. I'm just proud to be a part of it.
awesome. I'm going to try to hit on almost a week. I got 6 movies today, so I'm going to try to hit on just a little tidbit from almost everything. So backing up to From Beyond. Question I always had watching From Beyond when I was younger, I always felt that we reunite you with Dennis and with Stuart and with Barbara. I always thought that the Ted Sawyer role could have been played by David Gale. It just felt like that same sort of triumvirate of these three kind of archetypes. Was Ted always the pick for that, or was there any other possible casting for the Pretorius role?
That's a really good question that I don't have an answer for it. It kind of like never occurred to me.
I'd always struck me that David Gale would have been great in that
He
same
would have,
sort of.
But he didn't do it.
But yes. I'm coming around to that, yes.
And in a way, it would have been maybe a little like too on the nose. But maybe there's another theory here. I have a real recollection. The first time I saw a screening with an audience was like the Sci-Fi Society of LA, you know, the horror sci-fi club or whatever, in a screening room. And I remember that afterwards I walked out on the street and David Gale and his wife, she was like talking to him like, how could you? how could you do this? Like she'd never seen the movie until that day, and you know, David was a recent move to LA to pursue movies. He's a New York actor, and so perhaps, you know, his wife said, you know,
Never again.
you can't work with these people again, or like, no, you're not going to do that again. I don't know. I'm just surmising that might be, maybe he was offered the role. It seems likely because Stewart was loyal like that. I mean, how many times did he use me, and he's used Barbara and other people? I don't know if you noticed the lady at the beginning of From Beyond is the same lady as the beginning of Re-Animator, right. You know, where Dr. Gruber's eyeball, the same actress. Stewart was believed in a company
right.
of actors that he would use. So it makes sense to me that he might have offered it to him. Mm-hmm. And David may have graciously or begrudgingly said, no, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Although he came back and did Re-Animator, which we'll be watching later tonight. So, but that was some years later.
And it had a different, the sexuality.
It didn't have to, you know, From Beyond's very sort of, you know, Kikoid too. So. Sure. I don't know.
Fortress, you were in Australia.
Yeah, for like 10 weeks.
That's a long time.
Too long. Just too long because Catherine was newborn, fairly newborn, and you know, the budget was such that I couldn't, like, you know, bring my family. Nobody could, you know, so it was kind of frustrating that for me, and so for that reason, it was too long.
And you mentioned the whole company aspect. Tom, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, Tom Tolles?
Tommy Tolles.
Tolles, right.
Yeah.
He was in that with you, and then also Pit and the Pendulum as well. And Pit and the Pendulum, I'm drawing a blank on the time frame. That's around the same era as Fortress, maybe within a year or two. Is that Fortress is 91, 92.
91, 92, and Pit and the Pendulum is...
It was like 90,
Anybody got Google?
Harry? 91.
No.
Harry says 91, I would trust that.
And when was Fortress?
94.
92, I believe.
Really?
Or at least it
I
was
think
released. I don't know what
Fortress
they're computing.
Yeah, I guess they were very close together, yeah. So once again, that's a organic theater actor that Stewart had worked with.
I know we're not showing it, but is it true that Stewart wanted Peter O'Toole for the Pit and the Pendulum?
He did. Not only did he want him, it was very close to happening, and I don't really know. I think he met with him, and like some sort of deal had been made, and I don't know. Maybe it was a earlier iteration of Pit and the Pendulum, a deal that fell apart, and then it got resurrected. I don't know.
Peter O'Toole would be a great Vincent Price kind of villain. Not that Lance Henriksen isn't great in that role, but you know, if you're looking for how do you update the Roger Corman sort of Vincent Price as that Pit and the Pendulum figure, I could see the Peter O'Toole being sort of a slightly modern counterpart.
Right, but Lance wasn't that.
No, Lance is great.
Really amazing, you know.
He's amazing in everything. He really is. He is wonderful.
Done about, I don't know, 3 or 4 movies with Lance.
And of course, we're going to see the Frighteners tonight. I don't think I'll get one. I will go on record saying I think this is absolutely the most phenomenal. I'm not going to say your best role, but the most phenomenal showcase for your talents. That movie is, you absolutely are we showed it, you'll be shocked to hear it, at one of our 24-hour marathons, which tickets are still on sale. And the movie is a lot of fun, but the moment you come on the screen, it takes such a turn for the better. Not that it's bad before, but it just gets so much better. The level, the energy, everything just gets amped up in that first appearance. And I think there's nothing to me personally more iconic a role, you know, leaving Re-Animator aside than that performance for you. I'm just curious your thoughts on where it ranks for you personally in terms of the experience of filming, but also the end result of what you felt.
Like way up there.
Yeah.
I don't really can't pick one that's like number one.
Right.
But top five, easy.
Yeah.
Top three maybe. Peter Jackson is a brilliant and a remarkably egoless in a way. A very he's so confident in what he's done. He's wide open to. He's not wedded to his idea so much that he won't entertain another option in a kind of way. I've never worked with a director quite like that, especially with Stewart. Stewart was very clear about what he wanted, and if you had a debate with Stewart about, well, I don't know, maybe that's a little obvious or something, it was hard for him to entertain another option once he had cemented one. I don't really know. But Peter was sort of like, I don't know what you got. Perfect example of that is well, first of all, I came in very late on the casting. My agents at the time told me that they had submitted me for that role much earlier in the process, and they said, no, we're looking for someone older. And so they just kept looking and kept looking and kept looking, and I didn't even know that, you know. My agents told me that later. And then Peter couldn't find kind of what he wanted. And so finally, you know, maybe in like, well, whatever, let's try something, they said, okay, we'll see Jeff. And it was, you know, it was very near the end of casting. I know that because Michael J. Fox was there. Lead actors do not go to auditions until like the very end. And so the real, again, rehearsal. The real key, actors are treated like shit when it comes to preparing. You'll get a call from your agent and go, you know, we just sent you an audition and, you know, 5 pages of dialogue and it's tomorrow at 11. It's like 5:30 and you're going, geez, how can I? But Frighteners I had like a week. And again, like Cardi, this dialogue is very heightened, very unique and picturesque, and you know, you really want to hook into it because it's fantastic. It's not the, you know, how many auditions have I done where it's like I had to say the line, "This isn't over, man." You know, that kind of past sort of mediocre sort of TV kind of guest star stuff. So it was really, I really worked my butt off on it. And I went to the audition, and I remember I'm sitting there waiting to go in, and the door from outside is backlit, you know, the light from outside, and someone came in, and then they came and sat next to me, and you know how light can be behind, you can't really, and then it's Joe Mantegna. And I was like, oh. Wow, you know.
That's who you're up against.
Which is interesting, because Joe Mantegna worked with Stewart.
Right, a lot.
At that point, I didn't know that. And I just said, you know, really, really love your work. What are you here for? And he said, oh, this role, Dammers. And I was like, okay. I'm just filler here. I'm fucked. Especially when Michael J. Fox came out, I went, hey, Joey, hey, thanks for coming in. I was like, okay, I'm doubly fucked. And, this is not gonna, why am I here? Why am I here? But then they said Peter wanted to talk to me a little bit before I went in. which is really unusual. That doesn't happen. So, he was very, really put me at ease. Like you love Re-Animator and, just kind of generally put me at ease, which really got rid of a lot of my nerves. Nevertheless, I did everything kind of wrong when I went in, and he stopped me. He didn't stop me, let me go through. He goes, okay, do it again, but this time, no eye contact, attack and retreat. And I knew exactly what he was talking about. I went, right, got it. And that's what I did. And they taped it, and then that tape went around, and there was interest, and then and then you got the part. I had to wait a while. It was nerve-wracking, but
Thank God you got the part. It's such a wonderful performance.
and then it was like how he looks and the hair.
Sure.
Okay, the hair was kind of my idea. I was thinking, what happens when someone is so nationalistic that they become fascist?
Right.
Maybe we are living that nightmare right now. What's the prime example of that shit? And I thought of Hitler. And so I went to the Wellington Library, because we went down there for basically just working on the scenes, not shooting, just working on the scenes. Me, Michael J. Fox, Peter, and Fran, his partner and co-writer, and just so they could hear the music. An actor goes, they may change their mind with this, you know what I mean? But they didn't, and so while I was down there, I went to the library and I found a book of young Hitler, a picture book of young Hitler, and I came to Peter and I said, Peter,
like a children's book, Young Hitler. Like a children's book, Young Hitler.
Yeah, I did. I went through it. I was thinking, I got a temporary library card, so I could, Wellington Library. And I said, I was thinking, maybe my hair would be like that. And I remember Peter went, yeah, that'll be good. I was like, why? I expected him to say, no, that's a little too obvious. But my thinking was that this guy was undercover before he got pulled out, and he was undercover in a white nationalist Nazi enclave somewhere, That was sort of my thinking. Otherwise, it makes no sense why his hair was like that. But that's what I was sort of thinking.
It absolutely works for the role.
And Peter right away said, I want you to wear, I don't know if when you look at the movie, my eyeballs are black holes. I wore, Peter's idea, I wore black contact lenses, black, with a circle where it was clear, where my pupil would be. So it looked like I had, dropped 10 tabs of acid. Just nuts. That was his contribution to Mr. Dammers. So, a dream come true, working with Peter Jackson.
Of course. I have more questions about movies, but I don't want to take up too much time. I do have to address.
I will make my answers shorter.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to. I just want to get I want to get to the audience. Two things though, quickly. Yesterday, on his video, Dennis called out your Bob Hope impersonation. Sadly, it was after the Q&A last night, so the follow-up. I don't know if anyone under 50 still knows who Bob Hope is.
I ran into somebody, I was an Uber driver or something like that, and in LA, there's a smaller airport in Burbank. It's called many different things. The Burbank Hollywood Airport used to be called the Burbank Pasadena Airport, but for a long time it was called the Bob Hope Airport, because Bob Hope grew up had a, his own golf course and shit in Burbank, Toluca Lake it's called, which is kind of like the Beverly Hills of of the valley, you know, really high end, and so all the things that Bob Hope had done. I don't know. They called it the Bob Hope Airport. There's a bust of him in the airport if you look, you know. Well, an Uber driver didn't even know who Bob Hope was. It's like, I'm going to the Bob Hope Airport. She goes, I don't know. It's like, shit, you know. It's just weird. So I don't know how it happened. I don't know. We were shooting, I think we were shooting From Beyond or maybe Castle Freak or something. We were in Italy.
Okay.
And I said, you know, we were talking about Bob Hope and all of that, and I, out of nowhere, I said, you know, not a lot of people rule it. Christopher Columbus was an Italian. Hey, I tell you, that's something, hey, that's one. I tell you, hey. You know, Bob Hope does this, hey. You know, he just does these whack things, you know. Hey. No, but seriously, hey, we got the NCAA championship, we got Anita Ekberg, we got, you know, just like, you know. Martha Ray was one of Mom's who's got a K. I tell you know, it's just like nuts. You know, so Stewart got such a kick out of it, so I would just leave a message and like, hey, Bob Texaco handling viscosity hope. Hey, you know what I mean? She used to be a spokesman for Texaco, you know, just the way he says things like viscosity, you know, stupid. So, you know, an SCTV, SCTV, man. Dave Thomas did an incredible Bob Hope. So mine is a bad impersonation of Dave Thomas's. I tell you, Johnny, you know, you go on the Johnny Carson show. So that's all the Bob Hope I've done.
And then my last thing, and we'll go to the audience, the follow-up last night, we were talking.
That's for you, Stu. He's crying and giggling right now.
We were talking last night about how last night turned out to be, without kind of anyone's knowledge, cat trauma triple feature.
That's true. 3 movies with like cats being, you know, destroyed. Right? That's just what's going on? Is there a theme? Or maybe is there a theme with Stewart? Are all 3 Stewart movies? Does he have a thing with cats? I don't know.
So I am going to take this moment, I'm sorry, Jeff, to call you out just a little bit, because we were having this conversation, and I want the audience to know this. Your wife is in an amazing horror movie.
Yeah.
Your wife, Alice, is in the movie Night of the Creeps. And she plays basically the thrust of the sheriff or Detective Cameron. His girlfriend who was killed in the beginning of the movie, and then basically becomes kind of this driving force. Jeff, how many times have you seen Night of the Creeps?
I've never seen Night of the Creeps. Maybe I should.
Yeah, you should.
You know, I just, you know, and my wife's like, you know, she doesn't want, yeah, I did it. They cut half of my stuff. You know what I mean? She just doesn't really want to deal with it, so she doesn't want to, then, you know, okay, dear, we'll leave it alone. But yeah.
Well, the one thing I wanted to tie in was, if you've seen the movie, which I guess you haven't, there are not every, but many major characters in the film are named after famous filmmakers in the genre.
And the cat?
There is a dead cat in Night of the Creeps. Raise your hand, folks in the audience. What's the name of the dead cat in Night of the Creeps? Does anyone know?
Is it Jeffrey?
Very close. Not Jeffrey.
Gordon.
It's Gordon. There's a dead cat in the movie, and his name is fucking Gordon. That's 4 dead cats connected to Stuart Gordon. segue. Folks, if you have questions for Jeff, we're going to try to get as many as we can very quickly. Please put your hand up if you have questions. Yes, right over here, blue shirt. Looking vaguely familiar.
So speaking of dead cats, your word is gospel to me. So do you think that Herbert killed Rufus or not?
That's a great question.
That's for me to know and you to find. I would say, probably.
Yeah, he set the date back.
You know, an experiment was needed to be done, and you know, it'll only be dead for just a little while, and I'll bring it back. I really, yes, I do probably, but there is a certain kind of cruelty about that. I don't know. Maybe he found it. Maybe he did find its head stuck in a jar and saw, well, this is a fresh specimen. You know? So he's talking about, he never kills something to bring it back in the movie. So probably, maybe not. Maybe he did get his head stuck in a jar, and maybe Herbert watched him get his head stuck in a jar. And you know, his mistake is I took advantage of it. I don't know. I played it ambiguous because maybe it's a quick lie, but maybe it's the truth. You figure it out. It works both ways.
Bob, anybody in the upper level? Anybody in the balcony? No questions, Bob? We're going to take it down here. In the red.
Out of any movie or like stage production, what would you recommend someone watch after this event?
After this event?
Or, I mean, just in general, like what's like mandatory viewing a show to see?
What's a mandatory what?
Viewing, like what movie should someone watch first?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my movies that I'm most, for me, that I'm in, you mean?
Or any, exactly.
Oh, well, the first thing that popped into my head is a movie that I never saw before, that I recently saw, and it was kind of a weird revelation. I love noir. I really love noir. I like noir because of the look, the lighting, and the tone. It's very, you know, it deals with a lot of noir is done post-World War II. And it's interesting that a lot of these guys in noir movies are loners with sort of broken psyches in a way. Their innocence was lost, and in a lot of noir, their innocence was lost during World War II. Well, because of World War II, they're back, and they're just not fitting in. And you know, to me, this is sort of an interesting sort of way of dealing with PTSD, if you will, and sort of why it kind of appeals to me in a way, because they're just trying to get through with sort of a lost innocence. And so I like to watch noir. Also, it's beautifully shot, a lot of it, and you have to be clever with noir because a lot of them were like very low budget. And so you had to be smart with what you had, and I love the idea of a blank wall made interesting with a shadow. There's something about that, and the mesmerizing quality of smoke coming up through the frame. To me, that's cinema. Cinema is keeping the eye interesting. And so I saw this movie, it's a French noir that I had never seen. It's from the 70s, actually. It was called Les Samurai. Yeah, thank you. See, I was in the dark. I didn't know, and I saw it, and I was like, wow. I never saw this movie. Very, the guy walks around with a fedora and a trench coat a lot of the time, but he's like an iconic noir character and this really, really interesting storyline. He's a hitman, and before he goes and does the hit, he creates an alibi for himself, so that when he does the hit, he knows they'll pull him in, but he's got an alibi. It's just sort of, really clever and beautifully shot. Most noirs are like in black and white. This was like kind of in a very, very toned down color, but really sort of, flat and muted. It's just, and in Paris, I mean, it's just really interesting. So
Right.
that would came about.
Other hands?
Seeing your movies just now and knowing your work from Star Trek especially, what strikes me, yesterday you were saying that you love the variety of your characters, but a through line for all these movies has been your excellent command of comedy and a seriousness, drama. So when you're acting, do you think more about a comedy energy, or do you think more about craft and, serious scenes and moments? And do you prefer, which one do you prefer?
Well, I think the first thing I do is make the scene live. Make the narrative work. I don't really think in terms of I'm gonna make this funny and then I don't do that. I just, how do I make this scene work? I do like to kind of, it's kind of like music. If you listen to classical music, some of it's quite serious, and then some of it's frivolous, and you gotta have that variety to kind of keep the ball in the air. If it's all like kind of one note, it's really not music. And I think there's a reason why there's a comedy and a tragedy mask when you think of a logo for theater or for acting. So it's just human. It's just human. You can the sublime and the beautiful and the ridiculous. I mean, you just kind of have to do that. I don't, there's not a lot of humor in Castle Freak, that's for sure. Not a lot. So there's times when it's just a pulp. But Re-Animator, I felt Bruce and I got together right away and went, there's a lot of blood in this movie. Yes, there is. We need to have a release valve on this, So some of the things that we just quietly chose to do on our own, kind of releases so it's not all one thing, right?
Yeah.
You got to go away to come back.
All right, we have a couple more questions. Time for a couple more.
Hi, so I've heard some interesting stories from actors before of when they were on location and the cast was spending a lot of time together offset, getting into some crazy hijinks. I was wondering if any stories like that popped into your head.
What crazy hijinks have you experienced in your...
With the cast offset, when you've been like on location and you guys are kind of bonding because you were spending so much time together. Anything crazy like that?
It's work. And so that's first and foremost. But there are times when you really have fun. You got to. You have to. There's joy in creating a movie and getting to know people or getting to work with people that you already know. So there's a lot of that, but I'm not a big fan of messing around to the point where you're off the mark towards what you got to do here. Making movies is expensive, and you get too far afield, then you're causing detriment to wired hair. You know what I mean?
It didn't take one time of making that
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. But probably more in my theater days than once I started doing movies. Don't get me wrong. There's some fun, but I don't know. I have this sort of inner thing like, okay, that's enough. We got a serious face here. Let's go.
All right, let's see if we can get 2 more questions. Here's one.
Hi. You end up in a lot of roles where you have to deliver what I would think of as challenging exposition about how resonators work and reagents and Star Trek technobabble. Do you find that difficult, or is it kind of more fun?
Yeah, it's a good question. Writers put words in actors' mouths that are they're necessary because you have to convey that information, and you know that it's exposition, but you're obligated to say it, otherwise the narrative doesn't go through. I'll give you a perfect example. A moment that I really kind of slightly cringe at in Re-Animator. When I wake up from being knocked out by the torso head extravaganza, and I see my lab is a mess, and I say my work, and Dan Kane comes down, and I go, he took my serum. Oh, except for what I have upstairs. I have to say it, because later on in the script, I have some, right? In fact, I have a fucking lot of it, Oh no, and all that. So it's not like if he took it all, or if I conveyed that he took it all. So it's a necessary plot point. That's my responsibility to make it seem natural, even though it feels like the most artificial bullshit thing I have to say. So things like that, the resonator, but you just try to make it work as an actor. I've worked with actors, really, especially early on, and I go, yeah, I'm not going to say that. And you go, whoa. I come from the theater where, a writer spends a lot of time thinking about his script, and you fucking come along and say, no, I'm not going to say that. There's a reason why it's there. You have to respect the written word and first. And if it doesn't work, then you find another solution. But it is a responsibility of an actor to take that job of conveying information that the audience needs to hear that maybe you think character wouldn't say that at all, right? You just have to. It happens over and over, and it's just part of storytelling.
I said the same thing yesterday, I say it today. The last question in the Q&A has to be a really good question. So you've got...
Dan, I got one up here.
Oh.
The balcony wishes to speak.
But better democracy in action. Go ahead, Bob.
Better be really good.
Really good one.
No pressure.
Can you talk up a little bit more?
No pressure. So, of all of the creatures you've worked along beside with, do you have a favorite? Whether it be
Creatures, monsters, castle freaks, dead cats, reanimated bodies,
half human, half
ghosts.
Like
your favorite creature, effect, or moment, or monstrous character, cellar dwellers, any of those things.
I've never given that a thought at all. So that's not an especially zinger question there. I guess I just don't have an answer about that. A lot of the time, the creature isn't there, okay? I'm acting to a piece of tape. The creature's like later on another, and I'm not there, you know what I mean? So it's sort of hard for me to sort of jump on that one. Sometimes you just don't have an answer. I'm sorry. It occurred to me yesterday and today that I'm saving Barbara Crampton's ass over and over. When we got there, I stopped that nonsense. I really didn't say that to you. You're a perv. You know, I stop it there. From beyond, I'm the one who comes out through the goop and destroys Pretorius so she can, you know, jump out the window and break her leg and go nuts. And Castle Freak, I sacrificed myself for her to live.
Counterpoint, you caused all of those problems.
Dan, you may have a point. Well, you know, science is progress.
Jeff, rather than have the audience give the last say, I wanted to give you the last say. I just wanted to, before that, say to you, and I've alluded to this, we've had so many guests over the years. We really have. And I'm being very sincere. We have never had anyone who has been so generous with his time, who has been so involved in making this the best possible. When we say, yeah, we're going to stick somebody's head through the fucking table, and you just said, yeah, let's go with it. And we're saying, we would love to show 11 or 45 and 35 minutes, we can't find it. Well, let me call the director, who has taken such an active part in making this an incredible genre event for the community, for the audience. And I really want to thank you so much for that.
Dennis, because I love you. Oh, I love you. And Harry, too. I love Harry, too. We all love him.
But so, in your retrospective, as you're watching all these movies, is there anything that comes to mind, like, as you reflect back on your career, and obviously much more ahead of you, but any?
Well, I would just say that I'm stunned that it's come to a point where I'm at a retrospective of my work. And some of these movies I watch and I go, I don't even remember saying that shit. You know, there comes a point where it's so sort of removed. It's like a dream. It's like a dream. I do have one regret about this thing, that we could not include one of my favorite movies just because we couldn't. Right. And that's Would You Rather. For whatever reason, the ownership of that they were a closed door, and I don't get it, but they didn't want to play in our sandbox here. And to me, that's stupid and weird, because it is one of my favorites that I've done, and because it's sort of a parable or a metaphor for the haves and the have-nots, desperate people doing desperate things to just solve their desperate problem, and the people that could solve it just like that are use them as playthings. There's cruelty there that is sort of a metaphor for, you know, our society sometimes. It's beautifully shot, and it's a very clever script. I'm very proud of it. So I just, you know, it would have been nice if that could have come to fruition, because I think it would have. It's also kind of horrific. It's horrific, but not a horror movie. Right. You see nothing in Would You Rather, and yet you go out of it thinking you saw a lot more than you really did, because it's just so disturbing and unsettling. So there's that. But we can't do anything about that. But
maybe in the future, maybe we.
Yeah, if you want to, you know, go out there and explore another movie of mine, if you can handle it after 9 of these things. You know, take a break and then go back and check that out. I'd recommend it.
I think I turned my mic off.
Finally.
Folks, I can again express what a pleasure it's been, Jeff. Thank you so much for everything.
You have been great.
Thank you. We've got Jeffrey Cohen. All right, folks, stick around.